It was a rainy night when I reached the old cabin at the edge of the forest. My car tires hissed on the wet gravel as I parked. I had inherited this cabin from my late aunt, a place I had visited only once as a child. The memory of her warning echoed in my mind. Never stay after dark. The cabin looked peaceful enough, with its warm light spilling out through the small windows. But as I stepped inside, a chill ran down my spine. The air smelled musty, like it hadn't been disturbed in years. Every creak of the wooden floor under my feet sounded unnaturally loud in the stillness. I unpacked my bags quickly, hoping to ignore the uneasy feeling settling in my chest. The storm outside intensified, rain lashing against the windows and wind rattling the shutters. Then I noticed it, something that made me freeze. On the window across the room, there was a shadow. It didn't belong to me. It was tall, almost impossibly so, and it didn't move like a normal person. My heart pounded as I blinked, trying to convince myself it was just my imagination. But when I leaned closer to the glass, the shadow seemed to lean back, as if it was watching me. I told myself to stay calm, to ignore it, and headed toward the kitchen for a glass of water. But as I turned, I felt a sudden cold draft behind me, brushing against my neck. Spinning around, no one was there. The only sound was the storm outside and the soft creak of the old cabin. Then the whisper came, "You shouldn't be here." I froze. The voice was low, barely audible, almost blending with the sound of the rain. I strained my ears, but it didn't come again. My rational mind screamed at me to leave, but something, a morbid curiosity, made me move toward the staircase that led to the upper floor. Each step groaned beneath my weight. At the top, a long hallway stretched out, lined with old portraits of people whose eyes seemed to follow me. And at the very end, a door slightly ajar. From behind it, a faint light flickered. I approached slowly. The closer I got, the more I could feel the air grow heavy, almost suffocating. My hand trembled as I reached for the doorknob. Then, suddenly, the light went out, and I heard it again, louder this time. "Leave. Now." I stumbled backward, heart racing. Something in me told me this wasn't just an old cabin with a storm raging outside. Something alive, something watching was in there. From the corner of my eye, I saw movement. A shadow darted across the hallway, too fast, too precise to be human. I backed away, tripping over a loose floorboard, my breath ragged. The door at the end of the hall creaked open on its own, slowly, inviting me in. I knew I shouldn't go, but the shadow at the window had been waiting for me. And now, whatever was inside that room was waiting too. I forced myself to take a step toward the door. My hand hovered over the handle, shaking. The hallway behind me seemed to stretch farther than it should, the portrait's eyes following every movement. With a deep breath, I turned the knob. The room was small, almost a study, filled with dust-covered books and a single flickering candle on a desk. The walls were lined with shelves, and in the corner stood a tall mirror, its surface smudged and cracked. I thought I saw something move in it, a figure standing just behind me. But when I spun around, the room was empty. The candle flickered violently, casting long, twisting shadows across the walls. And then I heard it again, the whisper, clearer this time. "You shouldn't have come." My stomach churned, and I realized I couldn't see the window from where I stood. Yet the shadow I had seen earlier seemed to loom in the reflection, even though no one else was there. I backed away slowly, my eyes fixed on the mirror. Suddenly, the door slammed shut behind me, My heart jumped into my throat, the candle extinguished, plunging me into darkness. The air grew colder, and I could see my own breath forming clouds in front of me. Panic surged. I tried to open the door, but it wouldn't budge. And then I heard it, a soft, dragging sound across the floor, coming from somewhere behind the desk. Something was moving closer, slowly, deliberately. My legs trembled, my body frozen in terror. I reached out and grabbed one of the books on the shelf, holding it like a weapon. The sound stopped. Silence. Then, the whisper again, this time directly in my ear. You belong to the shadow now. I spun around, swinging the book blindly. My hand hid. Nothing. The room seemed empty, yet I could feel it there. A presence pressing in from all sides. The mirror reflected it perfectly. A dark, featureless figure, taller than any human, its shadow stretching across the entire room. Before I could react, it moved, faster than I thought possible. It glided toward me, its form twisting unnaturally. I screamed and stumbled backward, tripping over the chair. My hands clawed at the mirror, desperate, but my reflection was gone, replaced by its reflection, grinning. Then the candle reignited on its own, casting dim light. The shadow was gone. Silence again. My chest heaved. Maybe it had left. I ran to the door, yanking it open. The hallway was empty, the storm outside howling like a warning. But as I reached the staircase, I noticed something on the floor. A wet handprint, not mine. And it led straight to the window where I had first seen the shadow. I froze. Outside, through the rain, the shadow waited, watching, waiting for me to make a mistake. A sudden gust slammed the window open, and I heard it clearly this time. Next time, you won't escape. I bolted down the stairs out the front door into the pouring rain. The car, thankfully, was still there. I started the engine and didn't look back, not even once, until the cabin disappeared into the darkness behind me. Even now, months later, I can still see it, its shadow, waiting in the corners of my mind. And I know, someday, it will return. Days passed, but sleep never came easy. Every creak of my apartment sounded like the old cabin's floorboards. Every shadow seemed to stretch unnaturally, as if watching me. I tried to convince myself it was just fear, lingering from that stormy night. But deep down, I knew better. Then, one evening, I received a letter. No return address, just my name, scrawled in dark ink. I hesitated, but my curiosity got the better of me. Inside was a single photograph of the cabin, taken at night. And in the window, the shadow was there, watching, waiting. Panic surged. I couldn't go back. I wouldn't. But the letter contained something else. A key. Cold metal, old and heavy, with a note that simply said, "It's not finished." I tried to ignore it. I burned the photograph, hit the key, but the feeling followed me, everywhere. And then, the dream started. I was back in the cabin, standing at the same window, rain lashing against the glass. The shadow was there, only closer this time. It whispered my name, dragging it across the room like a broken record. I ran, trying to escape, but the hallway stretched endlessly, doors opening to rooms I had never seen. Behind every door, more shadows, twisting, waiting. I woke in a cold sweat, but that night, something changed. A knock at my apartment door, slow, deliberate. My heart sank as I approached. The door creaked open, and there it was, not fully formed, but unmistakable. The shadow. Its edges shimmered like smoke, and it hovered just above the floor. No eyes, no face, just darkness that seemed to suck the light from the room. I stumbled backward. My mind raced. I tried to speak, to reason, but words failed me. The shadow moved, and the air grew colder, heavier, suffocating, and then it whispered, the voice now a chorus of hundreds echoing inside my skull. You can run, but the shadow always returns. I tried to flee, but I couldn't move. My body was frozen, and the shadow slowly enveloped me. And just as darkness threatened to consume everything, I awoke. I was in my bed, sweating, heart racing. A storm raged outside. Strange, given it had been a clear day when I went to sleep. I tried to calm myself, telling myself it was just a dream. But then, I saw it. A single wet handprint on my bedroom window. And from the darkness outside, a familiar whisper carried in the wind. Next time, there will be no escape. I knew then that the shadow was no dream. It had followed me, and one day, it would come for me again. I couldn't stay in my apartment any longer. The shadow's presence had grown heavier with each passing night, and even during the day, I felt it lurking just beyond sight. Something had followed me from that cabin, and ignoring it was no longer an option. I returned to the cabin, this time in daylight. The gravel driveway was overgrown, the forest reclaiming the edges of the clearing. The cabin looked abandoned, yet somehow alive. As I stepped inside, the air felt thicker, almost pulsing. My heartbeat quickened, but I pressed on, determined to uncover the truth. I began searching the cabin room by room, noting every oddity, the way some furniture seemed to have shifted on its own, scratches along the floorboards that weren't there before, and books on the shelves rearranged into symbols I didn't recognize. Then I found it, a hidden journal tucked behind the fireplace. The handwriting was my aunt's. The shadow waits, it read. It feeds on fear, grows stronger with curiosity. I tried to contain it, but it is patient. It will return to claim what it was promised. A chill ran down my spine. The journal mentioned a ritual, something my aunt had used to protect herself, but it required confronting the shadow directly. My stomach churned, but I knew I had no choice. As night fell, I prepared the room according to the journal's instructions. Candles, salt lines, and symbols drawn in chalk. I felt the shadow before I saw it, a presence darker than night, pressing against the edges of the room. And then, as if drawn by my defiance, it appeared in the doorway. It loomed, silent, twisting, impossible to describe. The air vibrated with its power. I recited the incantations from the journal, my voice trembling. The shadow paused, then hissed, a sound like scraping metal and distant screams. The candles flickered violently, casting dancing shadows that mirrored the entity's form. I kept chanting, and slowly, painfully, the shadow recoiled, its edges frayed, curling in on themselves, as if trying to escape the chalk circle I had drawn. My arms ached from holding the ritual, but I didn't stop. Finally, with a shudder that rattled the entire cabin, the shadow screamed, a sound that pierced through the storm outside, and vanished. Silence fell. The candle flames steadied. The oppressive weight in the air lifted. I collapsed to the floor, exhausted. For the first time in weeks, I felt safe. But the journal ended with one final warning. The shadow sleeps, not dies. Beware the curiosity of tomorrow, for it never forgets. As I left the cabin, I glanced back at the darkened window. It looked empty, but I couldn't shake the feeling that it was waiting, biding its time, watching. Weeks passed, and I thought the shadow was gone for good. Life slowly returned to normal, though I never felt entirely at ease. The memory of that cabin, The whispers and the shadow's relentless gaze haunted me. One evening, I received a call from a stranger. No name, just a voice, calm but chilling. "You left something behind." Before I could respond, the line went dead. My pulse quickened. Something inside me knew the shadow had returned. Or perhaps it had never left. I returned to my apartment and noticed the subtle changes immediately. Shadows lingering too long, reflections in mirrors that didn't match reality. I tried to escape, to leave the city, but it followed me, always, waiting. I realized then that running was futile. That night the shadow appeared in my bedroom, not just a faint outline or fleeting movement, but fully there, taller than ever, twisting unnaturally, its presence pressing on me like a heavy weight. Its form pulsed with darkness, and from it came a voice. Hundreds of voices layered together. "You cannot hide. You belong to the shadow." Panic surged, but something inside me snapped. I remembered my aunt's journal, the ritual I had performed at the cabin. Desperate, I grabbed salt and drew a circle around my bed, chanting every protective incantation I could recall. The shadow recoiled, screaming in a soundless wail, thrashing against the invisible barrier. Its form fragmented, edges fraying like ink dissolving in water. I kept chanting, my voice shaking but growing stronger. Then, it did something I didn't expect. It paused. Slowly, deliberately, it began to mimic me. My movements, my expressions, even my voice. And in that instant, I understood. It wasn't just a shadow. It fed on fear, yes, but it also learned from me. It had been growing stronger every time I had glimpsed it, every time I had panicked. With renewed determination, I spoke firmly, not in fear. "You do not control me." For the first time, I felt it hesitate. The mimicry faltered, and the shadow wavered, flickering like a broken light. I repeated the ritual one last time, forcing it back into the void it had come from. Darkness roared, filling the room. Then suddenly, nothing. Silence. I slumped to the floor, exhausted, shaking. When I finally looked up, the room was normal again. The shadows behaved. The mirrors reflected only my own image. I knew the shadow could return someday, but for now, it was gone. As dawn broke, I opened the window to let in the morning light, and for the first time in weeks, I felt the sun's warmth. But somewhere deep in the back of my mind, a warning lingered, one I would never forget. The shadow waits for those who dare to look too long into the darkness, and it always remembers.